Hi, and welcome to Tremco Live, where we're socially distanced but technically connected. We're very excited to get with you every Friday, and I'm happy to be here in Cleveland as we have been doing. This is our 11th broadcast, so we're excited to have this opportunity to speak to all of you. I am Marcy Tyler, and I am the Director of Building Science for Tremco. And I missed Paul last week because we weren't together, but we're back together again today.
Yeah,
so,
thanks, Marcy.
My co-host.
Yeah, I'm Paul Hoogenboom. I'm the president of the Tremco Construction Products Group. Marcy, a fine collection of brands all over the world, a lot of companies all over the world. And what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think it's a perfect conversation and broadcast today because of all those brands, companies, products, systems, because when you look at a job site, think of all the different places that you have to connect, right? So if we had to put a number to it, how many different connections do you think there probably is?
Oh boy, I'm going to say thousands.
I would have to assume that, right?
And the combinations are like gazillions.
Gazillions, right? And not only are there all these connections, they have to connect appropriately, right? So they can withstand positive and negative pressure, thermal expansion and contraction, weather.
Yeah, there's always compatibility. You've taught me a lot, Marcy, about compatibility, right? Because you've got two materials on either side.
Yep.
Then you need something that goes between them that makes it all work. It has to be compatible with both.
Yep. It's definitely, it can be a pretty scary thing to see, right? When you want to make sure that those two things that came together, they need to adhere, but then they need to be compatible too. And I think that might be a great topic for Dante and I to address in one of our Dante and Marcy love building science. We'll take a deeper dive into it for sure.
Maybe show something that's incompatible, because you've got some great incompatible stories.
Yes, we do. We've got some, and we've done some posts on that in the past. So that sounds like something we can take a deeper dive into for sure, because it's definitely worth revisiting. So as I mentioned, we are talking about connectivity this month, the month of July. Last week we talked about building enclosure concerns. We had Brian Stroik on. Today we're going to start talking about solutions and what to look for. So as we start to go around that whole building enclosure and that wall assembly, there's some definite things that we want to address. So if we take a look at the information we provided today, we did take this journey so far together, right? So I thought it was appropriate to kind of revisit some of it. So throughout the weeks that we've been coming to you guys on Fridays, we've talked about a variety of different levels of restoration. We talked about time saving, we talked about green construction, prefabrication, but they all have points that need to connect, right?
Yeah.
In every single aspect. And that's why this was a great month to have it. It kind of rounds out what we've been doing so far. And connectivity is a concern all over that enclosure.
Yeah, what's interesting about Tremco, Marcy, is it's strategic for us to actually seek that out. Seek out solutions and systems for it. And I guess the way I like to call it is we run to it.
Yeah.
When in most cases it's referred to as by others, as in, well, somebody else will figure out what to do, which can often be the trades out in the field who are left to decide or try to figure things out. But we really run to it.
And I think we've said that, at least in our Tremco visits we've had with customers, and like, bring us those by others, because we've got something that can fit there.
And be by Tremco.
And by Tremco, and then we'll take on that connectivity, right? Because that's what's hard. We were reviewing a whole set of details yesterday, me, Dante Petrie, and Corey Bendokis, and when you get to a certain part, it's always that by others, you know. So I'm like, let's figure out how we can make that connection with our products and take on that connectivity, the adhesion, the compatibility, and the liability.
Yeah. And that's, as you've taught me, that's the difficult part of the building, right? It's not the monolithic surfaces, nothing ever leaks in the middle of a panel. It's where it's attached.
Exactly, right? It's like if you're painting your wall, right? Every single one of us can paint that big opaque surface, but when you get to that detailing, that's where you really need to pay attention, because you've got the interchanges, the interfaces, and the transitions that need to be properly detailed. So right now over the test wall, we have a whole series of compatibility tests going on in adhesion. So that's definitely something Dante and I can talk about in the future.
Yeah, just the test wall.
Well, we've got some cool new stuff coming there next week. That'll definitely be something we talk about next week and provide pictures along the way. So it's something we've been waiting for years, and that's our thermal chamber. So when we look at connectivity and all these different connection points, they have to adhere, they have to be compatible, and then how does that affect your thermal resistivity or thermal performance of the structure?
But guess what? When did I first hear about that, Marcy?
I don't know if
It feels like,
I don't want to tell you how long ago.
I'm gonna say 5 years ago, and I bet you the project started 2 years ago, right? Long lead time on that equipment.
Yeah.
And for it to be on site next week,
Yeah.
fingers crossed on the journey.
On the journey,
big
yes.
trucks.
Yeah. We're ready.
Yeah.
We're ready, so that's exciting. So that journey continues, and when we start to talk about connectivity, it kind of goes back into where I like to spend my time and have spent a lot of my time is that building science aspect and how coatings and membranes provide that connectivity through detailing. If we properly connect, our goal is to provide those 4 bullets, right? Connectivity can provide a reduction in building enclosure moisture problems, right? We're sealing it up, water can't get in. Whether it's in the form of water vapor or just liquid water, bulk water getting in. We know that if we do that, we're going to improve your air quality as well, right? So you're going to have conditioned space. So that is definitely something we look at when we think about fire stopping. There's a big reason for that, right? You don't want fire to transfer from one part of your building to the other. Well, we don't want that air quality to be compromised either. So we want to make sure we get that compartmentalization, exterior, interior, and provide that quality. Heating and cooling costs will obviously be reduced. We've got a lot of information that we can provide on that, and that'll be a future Tremco Live where we talk about this very building that's having its 10th anniversary of restoration. So we can take a look at how our building heating and cooling costs have been reduced with all that we did. So that's pretty exciting. Paul's curtains don't blow in the wind anymore on the inside like they used to, right? And the windows were closed. And then of course, all of that's going to give you a great sustainable, durable building, which is what our goal of all of us in this industry is. Paul, so when we look at things, we started working with the United States Gypsum Company. They're like, okay, you're going to put a sealant here. What does that have to do? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Sealants, air barriers, coatings have to do a lot of things, right? So the pictures we're looking at here is once membranes are put up, they're penetrated with different anchors, which is why we have a test facility so we can validate those. Other things might be put up against it, which could cause damage. So we need to have something that's durable even out in the field. What if water gets behind it? Those are some of those bubbles and blisters we're seeing there. And a lot of that occurs when you're field installing something, right? Versus having something factory installed, which can save a lot of time, which is one of the things we are featuring today. The other picture down there on the bottom left is where we had a compatibility issue, right? We used the wrong sealant with the wrong membranes. We had some problems. And then just different tensile strength, elongation, different substrates can affect products and how they're applied. Different porosity of CMU block, and then of course just connectivity. The far right picture is a job I was on, and that was their roofing connection. So we had a reverse lap, we had something that wasn't well adhered, and we had problems with water getting in. Yeah. So
that one on the far right, that's nasty, right? Because it can travel down the whole wall.
Exactly.
You don't know where it comes from, and a lot of times, you know, there's a big mystery, and of course in general, they're always like, it's the roof.
Yes.
And of course, you can see right there, it's that's probably, Marcy, you've educated me, that's probably the trickiest interface on the whole building.
I think that's another series we should do.
Yeah.
All about how to properly
detail
roof to wall.
The
roof to wall. Yeah. I mean, my kids will tell you, ever since they were little, if I saw the roof membrane coming over onto the air barrier and it was flapping in the breeze, that
Mom was not happy.
I was not happy about that. I think I pulled over to the side road and I'm like, take a picture. And they're like, what? Yeah. So my poor children. Anyway, so these are all the things we think about when we field install or when we just install any of our products. So as we mentioned earlier, this is where we want to come into play and help all of our customers. We want to provide you with those details. We want to provide you with those solutions, giving you flexible membranes, flexible, durable solutions so that all of those connections you have on your building can be addressed and addressed appropriately. So we challenge everybody, whenever you have that by others, think of Tremco. Reach out to your Tremco rep, reach out to me, and we want to provide you with a solution. All of these things are going to help with the energy consumption overall. And this is just something I wanted to bring up because we're always thinking about how we use our energy. 28% probably was used in transportation. I bet that number's different today.
I bet that's a little lower.
I bet that's a little lower. And then 33% is used in manufacturing, but about 40% are used in all of our buildings, our dwellings, right? So we can reduce that by 50% if we just focus on connectivity, transitioning appropriately, and stopping that natural airflow.
Yeah, that's a remarkable number. I think it catches a lot of people by surprise. And we have all the technology and science and the ability to achieve that today.
Yeah, we do. We do. So definitely challenge everybody. When you have that difficult connection, you've got some way that you need to connect, please let us know because we'd love to help you out. As we start to kind of go into this topic today and that wall, I just want to remind everybody, last week's broadcast was all about these top 10 concerns that Brian Streich brought to us. We've actually gotten quite a few requests for him to come give this presentation. A healthcare facility down in Florida wants him to broadcast this. So we want to help out as much as possible. We've been there. A lot of what we've learned is on those don'ts, not the do's. We want to show you what to do, but we also want to show you what we've seen that is out there that can be troublesome. And with that, we wanted to really feature and talk about today Securac Exor 430 system, and that's a key part of that. This is where we pre-applied our air barrier, so we're not worrying about the weather that can cause issues when you're applying in the field. We focused on speed and simplification. You know, Paul, when you have a pre-applied air barrier, you can save about 40% of installation time. Wow. So it's pretty significant. And on some of our jobs, because it's pre-applied, they're getting on job sites and working on the interior space way sooner.
Yeah, and I think
months sooner.
Yeah, that's been, you know, I often say, Marcy, that, you know, whenever we start to innovate a new system, our goal is generally to try to reduce the labor required by 80%. We don't often get the whole 80, but boy, Exor 430 has been a huge breakthrough, right, in efficiency on the job.
And then we've got our sealants that are there to apply to make those transitions. So you're still got your good flexible sealants that are very, they're very weather friendly when it comes to installation. So yeah, that definitely helps. Very cost effective. And because we did all of this pre-application, it gives you that predictable performance because we can test and validate for adhesion on that substrate because it's applied in a factory setting in a conditioned space.
Yeah, it's a completely tested, completely compatible system right out of the box.
Right out of the box. So when we look at that, we do some quality control too. The panels are orange. The sealants we use are green or purple. So from the job site, trailer, or even from your car, you can look up and see that the right sealant's being used. So that was definitely a feature that we wanted to really focus on. And from a compatibility perspective, this is great too. Green Dimonic 100, that's a polyurethane sealant. Purple Spectrum 1 is a silicone sealant. If you want to know when you're using one of those, right?
Yep.
Urethane products are very compatible with a lot of different things. Some of them have a lot of volatile content. Fortunately, Dimonic 100 is one of those low volatile content sealants that is compatible with so many different products. It's great. Spectrum 1, because it's a silicone, is also very compatible, but the only thing that sticks to Spectrum 1 is another silicone. So that's why we made them two different colors. So it's much easier on the job site. Someone's not going to put the wrong sealant in the wrong spot and have issues down the way. We also like to make sure that we were handling all these variabilities that you would see on a job site. So imagine you've got all your connectivity that you have to already address on every single building. We wanted to eliminate some of that guesswork on making something be pre-applied. And on top of it all, giving you all the components to make all the connections as we go through the project. And you know what, Paul, we upped it to one more level.
We did.
We did. So what's that next level of simplification? It's providing a solution with outsulation from Dryvit.
Wow.
So now we've got even more touch points, right? All coming from one manufacturer. Yeah. It's not by others. And all of the different components that are in this system have been tested for adhesion compatibility.
Yeah, having Dryvit become part of our group, you know, Marcy, for many, many years, I aspired to that. And when that decision was finally made by RPM, that was, I think, a great day for both Dryvit and Tremco.
It was. We've been working really closely with Dryvit through the years, but it's that much more of a closer partnership, having all those subject matter experts under one company. Yeah. So it really does make for, I mean, we've been very excited with all of our Dryvit partners out there being able to come together on this for sure. So with all that we talked about today, and we talked about those transitions and those connectivities, the key part of connecting any building is being able to connect with your local feet on the street. So in this case, we have Pat Garrity, who's the district manager out of Missouri, the Kansas area. So Pat, welcome to Tremco Live.
Thank you for having me, Marcy. How are you guys?
We are good.
Glad to hear it. So I will tell you a little bit about this project. This was about 3 years ago when we first got involved with a large general contractor out of the St. Louis area, Parrott Corporation. But obviously a large project that was on our radar, a high performance air barrier was specified. So when everything ended up coming to fruition, it made a lot of sense on what they ended up doing with us on this one. But both USG and Tremco has worked a lot with the quality control department, PERIC, for over the years. And we both had connections with some of their project team members, and this was a project that they were actually self-performing as well. So from that whole aspect of it, it made a lot of sense for us to try and promote our 430 system with them. It was 130,000 square feet of air barrier on sheathing. It was going to go over the course of a full year. Obviously, that means through cold weather in the wintertime. To your point, that really doesn't play a factor with the materials that we have on this. But at this point, the official system hadn't really been out that long. So PERIC obviously knew Tremco very well, along with USG, and was comfortable with all the components, because it really wasn't a new system. It was kind of a different way of bringing everything together. So at that point, there wasn't any concern, but we had to go through some hoops to make sure that this got approved with the architect, and we had all the third-party testing done to get with the city of Creve Coeur. But at the end of the day, everything got approved, and we moved forward with it. But at the same time, to your other points that you're making about connections, PERIC understands the value of having someone that can cover so many different scopes and make those connections. So we were able to leverage this with PERIC to get all the sealants on the entire building, the glazing material, ProGlaze ETA was used as well. So it ended up being a huge project that obviously Tremco and USG spent a lot of time on site, helping them out, training their crew. And for the most part, it went all smoothly. We had to go out there and pretty much just do inspections to make sure things looked good. But after the job was over, they gave us a nice testimonial of time and money that was saved by using this system. So and at this point, 430 has kind of become something that their self-performing group looks as a standard if the project calls for a high-performance air barrier specification. So this has been something that we work with PERIC on quite often moving forward.
I love the picture up on the upper left, because it really shows, the air barriers installed, and then look at all the different girts that are going through there and facade anchors penetrating that membrane. So you definitely want something that's high performance.
And the picture on the top right, if you don't know that, the fellow on the left is me. I like to make sure people know that I do get out there and get dirty on these job sites. So that's
Well, it's interesting. When you sent me these pictures, it started to seem familiar to me. So Mo and I did, Todd Morowski and I did go out on this job site years ago, because we were meeting with the panelizer while we were in town. I think you weren't able to join us that day, but so I was on that. I remember the mock-up for this one.
Yep, I remember that as well. But yeah, we were out there over the course of a year, probably 10 to 15 times. So we made sure it went smoothly.
Well, and that's the key part of this, right? Is that ability for you or me or whoever it is that's in the area that can come out and help give that kind of guidance, be there for the pre-construction, the mock-up, and obviously the installation throughout the process. So that's definitely a key part. Pat, I know you and I talked about the progression, right, of being able to also have Drive It, and I know your Drive It counterpart, Tommy, helped you out with some of these pictures, and he's been helping out on job sites as well now.
Correct. So Tommy Eberhard, he is out of the St. Louis area. I'm not obviously out of Kansas City, but we both made a big focus on working with general contractors. But Tommy's got about 12 years experience in the EIFS industry, selling EIFS for a distributor before he actually came with Drive It. So he's very well versed, knows the air barrier systems as well, and took on the idea that we have as well to try and promote our high performance air barriers behind the EIFS. So here the pictures obviously show the 430 system that you talked about, and now we're pretty much with our internal testing with the Exor 230. We have several projects going on with PERIC and a couple other general contractors throughout our market that they are, they would rather have a high performance air barrier than the traditional thin mills that are behind those systems. And instead of on jobs where it's a large hospital and half of the job is specified with, let's say, Exor 230, and then you've got to tie in to the EIFS air barrier, now we're up in the warranty by 5, even 10 years to make that whole entire air barrier system one manufacturer and a high performance air barrier system where we have it all tested. So yeah, we're on job probably 6 or 7 over the last 6 months now where we've been able to get that flipped, and there's a lot of good feedback in the market about that moving forward.
Well, yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up because we talked a few weeks ago about just that. How is that going? How is that addition of Drive It? How's that all coming together? And you mentioned that is something that general contractors are looking at doing, which brings us right to our next slide. You mentioned a lot so far about your working and your partnership with Peric, and we're really happy that we also today have Jeff Fisher, who's the quality director of Peric, joining us today. So now we can ask him and get his feedback on how this partnership's working and those design challenges that he sees in the field. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you very much, Marcy and Paul and Pat. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be part of your live event.
Yes, thank you. So in talking with Pat and with yourself, and then just checking out your website, I see a lot of synergy between your company and Tremco. Tremco did start, it's a family business, right? A few episodes back, Paul talked about that. And when we watched your video, we felt that kinship there in terms of, I think your video starts off with, it's always been about the people and treating each other as family.
Absolutely. It's Peric is a family-owned business, and all my partners here at Peric, we do treat each other like family, and it's a great atmosphere that we makes it easy to come to work every day.
That's great. So your firm is considered you're a general contractor, construction management, and a design builder. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So
we've
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, we do quite a bit of design build work, and really our specialty. We have a wide range of markets we dabble in. I shouldn't say dabble in. We're a huge player in the senior living, multifamily markets. We do high-rise construction. Obviously, you saw pictures of our healthcare project there in Creve Coeur, Missouri. We do electric cooperatives. We're currently working in, I think, 12 different states right now. So tenant improvement, high rise, and when you have all those different kinds of projects, it presents different kinds of challenges here that we get to deal with on a daily basis.
That is one of our questions we just got that just came in, actually. One of the questions was, what do you feel is your biggest challenge as a general contractor?
Well, I think the biggest challenge as a general contractor really is when you look at construction, and we have a lot of high-tech products now. We have a lot of high-tech, equipment that we're using, but ultimately it comes down to the tradesmen who are working every single day, putting these products on the wall and making sure that we have our all our intersections and our connections are sealed up right. So today, we have the construction industry as a whole. The tradesmen are getting older, so we're trying right now to recruit younger people into the construction trades and show them the advantages of what a good career it is, and trying to make sure that we have people to install these materials for us in the future. But manpower is a huge issue, and when you work in different parts of the country like we do, there's language barriers and everything else. So it makes it challenging and exciting at the same time.
Absolutely. So you mentioned 12 different states. How are things going? That's another question we have is with COVID, how are you guys handling this current situation that we're in?
Well, fortunately, we've had we have a great group of people who get together on a daily basis to look at the latest recommendations and guidelines from obviously our local municipalities all the way up to the guidelines issued by the CDC. And fortunately, we've been able to work through all of these, all the COVID-19 challenges that it's presented. And I think the biggest challenge we have right now is that the impacts it's had to getting materials onto our job sites, really. But we've been able to work through it with Obviously, safety is first and foremost on all our projects. So a good example is, taking daily temperature checks for all employees before they enter the job site is a big one. And then wearing masks where social distancing can't be maintained are just really two of the big things that we do on a daily basis. And then obviously keeping, bottled water out on site and trying to maintain, higher cleanliness standards that you would normally have on a job site. So.
Yeah, that's similar to what we're doing here, right, Paul? We're doing the temperature checks, the social distancing, the mask wearing. So.
Yeah, for us, no different, I think, Jeff, than the job site. Our worst fear is having to shut a facility down, and I suspect for you, having to shut a job site down. So we're incredibly disciplined on the social distancing and all the protective equipment and the practices. And we've not yet had one work-related transmission. That's across 6,000 people. So it's a real battle, Jeff. I can feel for you.
Yeah, it's amazing. And really, with the senior living projects that we do, we, not just our employees, but we think about being on an active campus where, there are people who are more vulnerable. So it really takes on a higher level of priority to make sure that we're keeping our customers and our clients safe.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I think even at Tremco here, prior to all this, we were looking at more open spaces, right? More shared areas. My son works down in Tampa and they were building a brand new building for their employees and it was all open space. And so they're going back to the drawing board because they have time to kind of restructure their space now to make sure that there's a little more distance and, it's interesting.
Well, and the other big change, of course, is, we call it work from home. WFH is the new acronym, but it's become the new normal. But of course, Jeff, where you live, you got to be out on the job site. That's where the work happens. And so that's where work from home is not an option.
Yeah, and it's really been, Carrick has really had a very sensible approach to that. We've opened our office back up to those who want to go back in. Obviously, we have certain criteria that have to be met as far as 50% capacity. But they've been extremely flexible with people who want to work from home, and then obviously accommodating people who want to work from the office. And the only thing I can say that we have is we have a lot of Zoom meeting fatigue right now is really the way I sum it up here. Everybody's getting tired of getting on Zoom and seeing each other that way. So
yeah, we feel it. I think everyone's feeling that, right? I mean, sometimes I don't leave my chair. I think when you're in the office, you got up and walked around a little bit more, maybe. I don't know. So definitely feeling that.
One thing that I would say that this is, because we work in so many states, we've had to utilize our technology as much as we can to, for a long time, they were not allowing any kind of travel via commercial airliner. So, we were using job site cameras and, the Zoom app turning the camera around on your iPhone or your iApp and looking at first installations and some other stuff. So rather than me travel to Texas or to North Carolina or Nevada, we could just go ahead and pull this information up over our devices and me try and monitor that first installation. So there's been some good things that has come from it.
It is amazing what you can do. And I can remember, I don't know how many years ago, being on a job site actually in St. Louis with one of our reps at the time. And we were thinking about just that, like, wouldn't it be cool if you could somehow talk to, the home office and show them something live? So obviously we were able to do that. I did notice the drones, that you guys are starting to use drones. How often are you using those on your projects?
We are using drones for a variety of different uses. We've used drones to not just for job site photos, but for scanning purposes to find out how much cut and fill are on project sites. We've used drones to do roof inspections and everything else. Inspections on high-rise buildings where a jetpack or magic carpet is would be needed normally. We would, versus dropping a stage down, which can be very expensive. Flying the drone up and looking at different intersections. So, I would say that probably 50% of our projects have drones on them and fly them on a weekly basis and have are certified by the FAA to have that drone license. So
I was reviewing a project where they used a drone on the side of the whole assembly, and they found detail of like where a fastener head wasn't detailed on the side of the building with sealant, and I was amazed at that level of detail. And it brings me back to the Secure Exor 430 system where, like I said, you can see that the sealant's being used even if you're on the ground, right? Because of the green sealant. How did that go for you guys when you've worked with Secure Exor 430 from a quality control perspective?
Well, it's really the Exor 430 product is a great product, and like Pat had said, when we did our BJC hospital project here in Creve Coeur, Missouri, we really looked at that the sheathing and the air barrier we're going to progress right through the middle of winter, which is obviously creates a lot of challenges. So we're going to have carpenters out there sheathing the building. It really made a lot of sense for us to use the 430 product, and really as far as detailing the panels and everything else, we were able to do that through the cold weather, and it really helped us get our building enclosed that much faster, and really takes when you start thinking about a product that's applied by an individual in the middle of winter versus something that's applied in a factory and then screwed to a building, it's from a quality control standpoint, it made a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was just talking to a installer in the Baltimore area, and he wants to use it even on like a CMU wall, because he said just the complexity of different types of porosity of block and weather and moisture. He was like, I'm going to figure out a way to use Secure Rock on my whole building, because he just didn't want to have to deal with it. Now, with this whole how Tremco commercial or construction products groups coming together and having Drive It as an option, I know that has helped a lot on your projects as well.
Absolutely. I can tell you that I've worked with both Pat and Tommy Eberhard before they were joined together. So both great people, great individuals, and a lot of knowledge. And it really does make sense for us to be able to have the opportunity to use the 430, and especially with the fast-paced fast track construction that we're almost every project we have is has got a super fast schedule. So really it's kind of like hitting the easy button. I'd like to say I try and keep things simple if we can.
That's great. Yeah, no one's usually saying, guess what, Jeff, we'll give you a couple extra weeks on that. One of the questions that just came in was about different types of facades. Obviously there might be a building that you have that's all EIFS as a facade, but probably majority of the time are you seeing a mixed facade? And then because of the mixed facade, obviously this has to be a benefit to you, because if there's EIFS and other facades, you can use one air barrier on that whole building by going with Secure Exor 430.
Absolutely. Most of our projects have different types of facades on them. And usually we try and look for to keep things, to have continuity. And, if we have, obviously when we used to use the, most EIFS systems employ a thin mill air barrier product. And there's times when we would want to, if you put an EIFS over, for example, OSB on a senior living project, it's a little more difficult product to put a thin mill system onto. So number one, having a single source for all your air barrier, and then number two is having the ability to use even the 230 now, a thick mill system I think is a game changer as well.
That's good. That's great. That's great to hear. We're happy that we were able to provide that solution and give you a little, maybe something, a couple less things to worry about as you go to sleep at night, I'd like to think. So
yeah. If you look at that picture of our hospital, you'd see I had a few sleepless nights for sure.
I'm sure. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. Pat, thanks so much for joining us today on Tremco Live. We really appreciate your support on this. We look forward to working with you more in the future.
Well, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks so much. And Pat, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me as well. You guys have a great weekend.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. So that is our Tremco Live broadcast for today, July 17th. But to continue our connectivity message in the month of July, Paul, next Friday.
Well, what's up?
We're going to start talking about even more connectivity options, right?
Okay.
Expansion joints, different types of transitions. And we're going to
Okay.
talk all about our Will Seal products,
All right.
ProGlaze ETA,
Okay.
and I think one of your favorites.
Well, both of those are.
One additional favorite, Simple Seal. I know you really like that Simple Seal product.
I love Simple Seal. So we'll tell a few stories next week.
Yeah, so we've got Kathy Alvine in the product management department who's helping me with some content. We're going to put something really good together. And what's interesting is we're going to have us all think about, how wide is those construction gaps on your project?
Yeah.
They can be anywhere between an eighth or 16th, an eighth, a quarter, all the way up to 10 inches.
A lot.
Or more. And we've got solutions for that. So we're going to talk about the connectivity solutions for your construction gaps.
Well,
and
those
transitions.
three too. I always call those unicorns, right? Because unicorns are special. They aren't seen in nature. And each of those three products that you mentioned, Marcy, they're very unique. We look forward to sharing them with you next week.
Yes, we will. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.
See you.